Welcome to the first episode of the Vision Mission, a podcast network hosted by Children's Center for the Visually Impaired. I'm Connor Uptegrove. I'm very happy to be joined here today by Kerry Boehm, Executive Director of CCVI. Kerry, thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome. Glad to be here. Glad to launch this new podcast.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about your background.
So I was a teacher, probably still am a teacher at heart, special education teacher, regular education teacher, but really figured out that my passion was early childhood special education. So love all education, but love those early years, love the brain development part. So started there, went on to be an administrator of special education and knew I was ready for a new chapter, and CCVI came and it was just what I was supposed to be doing.
Absolutely. And so for those of us who are kind of new on our journey with CCVI, tell us just a little bit about what CCVI is and what we do.
Okay. So CCVI is really, it's a nonprofit agency, and it really works to ensure that children birth to 21, so we don't always think of 18-year-olds as children, but that's who we're talking about today, that all of our children who have a visual impairment really have those essential skills to go out and really just live the life they were meant to live.
And there's a lot to be said there too, I think, about the fact that it really does take a village to support a child with special needs, and particularly one with a visual impairment too. You know, I think about so many of our community partners that are out there that really make it possible for us to do the work that we do. We couldn't do what we do in a vacuum.
No, absolutely not. And our families really can't function that way either.
Right, 100%. And when we think about things like health equity too, you know, I think that our work really comes into play with that so often.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think we're understanding that more and more all the time.
Absolutely. And I think that the community's understanding it more too. You know, I think that historically, you look at the BVI community, right? The blind and visually impaired community, and for so often, that sort of perception around it has been career readiness, right? That's been such a trending topic in so many ways, but I think that we've sort of seen at CCVI as our evolution has gone along that really we're looking at independence much more broadly, because that looks very different for every child.
Not just your career, but your whole life. We really want that grit, that resilience, that understanding what are your interests, being able to go explore your interests, understanding that you have voice as a child, even with a disability and possibly a really significant disability. Your voice matters. It's your life. And so honoring that in a million different ways as we go through our journey with these kids and these families.
You said the word grit. What exactly does that mean for a child who's blind or visually impaired? You can think about that maybe like an early childhood sense or in more of a long-term picture, but I
think it doesn't matter the age. I think it matters that you know that it's okay to fail, and you're going to fail, and you're going to get back up, and you're going to try it again, and you're going to keep working at it, and keep working at it, and keep working at it until you really do get it, and you've hit that goal that you want to hit. Sure. So it's a little bit of resilience, but also the ability to just really dig down deep and find that you have to do hard things, and you can do hard things. You figure that out young.
Right. Well, and you said something else there too that I think was really, really important. It really speaks to why we're doing this, which is giving people and kids a chance to have their voices heard. You said that phrase, and I thought that was really interesting because really the reason why we're trying to do this and sort of launch this off the ground is to give families and give children a chance to really share their own voice. So I think what a lot of people will expect to hear on this network is a lot of very uplifting stories, right? You know, from families and the community and the staff. Absolutely. So many of our staff members are former parents, and that always strikes me as something that's really impactful. But I think that the other important piece of that you've kind of brought an interesting perspective on is really helping the support network beyond our CCVI walls.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about our MOVE program. What is that?
So MOVE kind of has my heart a little bit. So I said I loved early childhood, and that's where we're sitting today is in an early childhood room. But MOVE really meets the needs of kiddos beyond these walls. It allows kiddos to stay in that least restrictive environment. It allows them to go sit beside their neighborhood children in their elementary, middle, high school and be successful because they've got the support of maybe CCVI staff, could be a teacher of the visually impaired, could be an orientation mobility specialist that's coming in to support that school staff and that student. So it's not just we come in to that school and we see a fourth grader and we help them with Braille and we help them learn how to orient their school. It's really much more than that. It's working with that staff that's at that school every single day, all day long with that kiddo, and helping them understand, how do they accommodate? How do they ensure that they are truly challenging that child? How is that child using their voice when they can't see something the way they need to? Do they understand that they have to self-advocate to that school? Does that school give that child's voice do they honor that child's voice and do the work that it takes to get that child to where they need to be? So love the MOVE program, but it really is, it also speaks to child voice, because we want children to be able to say, this isn't working for me, can you help me?
Right.
And that's part of MOVE.
Absolutely. And I think, as you know, my mom is a special education teacher, a life skills teacher, right? And fortunately, she is fairly close in proximity to CCVI. If she needed professional development or she needed resources, right, we're an easy, close resource, right? But I think that a lot of the reason why we're doing this and that we're having conversations like these is so that those teachers who are out Cape Girardeau, for example, can have an opportunity to absorb the type of stuff we're talking about, right, and learn from it as well too. So, I'm super excited to get a lot of our, teachers of the visually impaired on here and our therapists who have worked with kids who are blind or visually impaired for decades of combined experience, to kind of share what works for them and what works in their rooms. And how can that translate to that life skills classroom in Cape Girardeau?
Absolutely.
That's a really powerful thing and a really powerful resource. So
that did also remind me, we do have also teletherapy that we're using across the state. So we are doing, and sometimes we're just working with those providers for that student and really supporting them to make sure that child has what they need in that classroom, and that teacher understands how to best present materials for that kiddo. So that's pretty cool too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm super excited for people to kind of join us along this journey, because typically we'll be talking about something vision related, but not always. I think there's a lot of room for people from all different backgrounds and all different specialties to come in and learn something too. I was recently talking with one of our OTs about how to resolder a Switch toy, and that's one of those things that transcends vision.
That's not just a vision issue.
Absolutely. And I think one of our first series out here will actually be about trolley run too. So tell us a little bit about what trolley run is.
So the first word that pops up in my mind is always tradition. It's a huge Kansas City tradition. It's also a fundraiser, and it's an awareness raiser for CCVI. It is also a day where I feel like our families see a whole entire community, thousands of people come out to support their kiddo so that they get what they need. So pretty cool day, honestly.
Yeah, I think that you said something there too about the family and the child feeling like the day's about them.
And it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Truly it is.
Absolutely, 100%. And when we know this obviously, but whenever a family gets a diagnosis of visual impairment, I think the things that often come in front of them are all the things that their child can't do, right?
That's
and
true.
I think that
that's
trolley
what we
run,
tend to focus on.
Absolutely, and trolley run gives such a beautiful opportunity to say, hey, my child is doing this, right? We're crossing the finish line together, and that's such a hopeful day, and one that I love hearing the stories from the families that come out of it. I mean, you see so many incredible, beautiful people get to really kind of celebrate each other in a lot of ways.
You do.
Yeah,
and I feel like our community really gets to see a population that is not a huge population. The blind and visually impaired population is not huge, but they get to see kiddos and adults using white canes to navigate a race. They get to see people being led, having assistance during a race. They just really get to see a variety of runners, and that's a pretty runners. That's a pretty cool day.
Yeah,
for all of Kansas City.
100%. And I think that this first series is going to kind of shine some light into that. So I know we're hopefully going to talk to somebody from Achilles Running Club in this series too, which pairs guide runners up with blind and visually impaired individuals. We'll talk with our race directors and everybody along those lines too. But I think that's a lot of what people will find on this network is stories from individuals you weren't sure you were interested in the first place that you find has some really compelling things to say about the vision community, special needs, and Kansas City as a whole. I do want to pivot to this just a little bit there. So you've been at CCVI now for 2 years, right?
2.5, yep.
You talked a little bit about, sort of looking for that change before you came, right? What's your why? What motivates you to get out of bed in the morning and come to CCVI?
So I think it's really, for me, about ensuring that, I don't get to work with kiddos every day anymore. That's not what I get to do. But I know that I'm trying to put the structures in place to ensure that those out, and we have a large staff of providers, they're really out making a difference for kiddos. They're ensuring that that child has the accommodations they need. They're ensuring that child is learning how to use their voice, whether that's an AAC device that they're pushing and it's their voice. If it's a head switch, it's their voice. We really want to make sure that our community understands what we do. It's really all just about making sure that that kiddo really does truly grow up to have every skill. We don't all have all the skills we need, but to have as many skills as we can build for them so that their life really, we want them to meet their highest potential.
Yeah. I think that for me, the reoccurring trend is sort of how broadly we reach out. I think that a lot of times, a child very much, they grow up in their neighborhood, right? They go to school with their peers. And CCVI really has the opportunity and has had the opportunity for over 70 years to really kind of transcend that sort of geographic boundary.
True.
There's so many school districts out there, who are incredibly small in rural areas, right?
Yep.
And CCVI, kind of finds a way to reach those just
We
as
do.
much as we do big districts.
We do.
You can look at so many populations that we've served geographically, right? And look at what quality of life looks like for those kids, you know? So in other words, we're talking about things like life expectancy, independence, access to healthcare, and that all stems from a good education.
It does.
Right? And so
It
I think
does.
finding the way to resource teachers and providers and administrators and really being that collaborator, that lifelong collaborator is something that it motivates all of us. And so
I would agree.
yeah, it's one of those things that definitely I think is a driving factor in what we do.
I would agree with that. It's probably one of the best parts of this job is just getting to work with so many different community agencies to ensure that our children have what they need.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
Do you have one particular story from CCVI, one particular kid that stands out to you? You don't have to name names or anything like that, but just anything that really has stuck out to you over your time?
Yeah, I would say that's pretty easy. Actually, there would be a lot of stories, but typically what I love is getting to watch a kiddo from pretty young, and as they kind of go through that trajectory of life, and you get to know them when they're 1, 2 years old, and then for you to see not just their abilities change, because kids grow. Those brains are going to develop no matter what we do, they're going to have growth. But to see them truly change and to, I think, go to be a confident little learner and almost a leader, to watch them lead. So they walk in the building, they're grumpy, they are not feeling safe, they don't know us, they don't really know how to be their best authentic self. And that's what I feel like we really bring out in them, is the ability for voice, for choice, and really to lead where they can lead, to find those really, those gifts that child brings and be able to really lift them up and allow them to use them. That's beautiful. And we have several of those stories, but there's one that would walk in the door every day protesting, was walking, but was protesting all the time, every day, very loudly, very mad, very sad. And now pretty much runs this place.
Yeah.
He's got it.
Yeah.
So it's that is what I love to see. Because we didn't tamper down that grumpy voice. We let that grumpy voice be. But how do we find the place for you to go to use your voice, to empower yourself so that you can be a happy little human while you're here? So I love watching him walk in the door still.
That's incredible. So we got a lot of fun stuff coming up. People should be sure to keep tuning in, right?
Should.
We're gonna have a fun trolley run series to kick things off, and
Nothing better.
That's right. We'll keep rolling with it.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Connor.
Perfect.